What would you do if the only thing standing between you and the end was your dog? In the heart of a Minnesota blizzard, war-scarred Logan Brooks stands at the edge of a deserted bridge, but his loyal German shepherd, Blitz, refuses to let him go. Through the blinding snow, a tiny SOS flickers in a diner window, a child's silent cry for help. Sometimes, a hero is just someone who shows up. If you believe animals save us as much as we save them, give this video a like. And for more true stories of hope and loyalty, hit subscribe and join our heartwarming Animal Stories family. Because you never know when one act of courage, human or canine, might change a life. No one ever expects their darkest hour to come in a swirl of blinding white. But as the Minnesota blizzard hammered the empty highway bridge, Logan Brooks stood with his boots buried in the snow, the wind's banshee scream clawing at his coat. The world beyond the concrete railings was lost, erased by sleet, snow, and a cold so deep it gnawed right through flesh and memory. Logan didn't care. His hands clenched the icy railing, knuckles pale and raw. The river below, invisible in the storm, called out to him with a strange, silent promise. An end to the ache in his chest, and the war replaying in his mind every time he closed his eyes. But Blitz wasn't having it. The old German shepherd, still strong despite the streaks of gray on his muzzle, wedged his heavy body between Logan and the edge. Blitz's breath fogged in the air, eyes sharp and unyielding, his presence a stubborn barricade against the void. Logan tried to step around him. Blitz snapped his head up, letting out a single sharp bark, a command as clear as any from their time overseas. Logan hesitated. The bark echoed, ricocheting off the ice and concrete, bouncing through the hollow ache inside Logan's ribcage. "Move, Blitz," Logan muttered, voice shaking, not from cold, but from the effort of holding back everything that wanted out. He shoved gently at the dog's massive shoulder. Blitz braced, unmoving, a wall of fur and willpower. Logan's breath hitched. For a second, he felt every scar, every night terror, every time he woke up gasping, alone except for Blitz, who always came running. Suddenly, Blitz's ears pricked. The wind shifted, carrying a strange, faint sound, a thin, frantic tapping, almost lost in the storm. Blitz let out another bark, insistent, and started tugging at Logan's sleeve with his teeth. Logan blinked, rubbing sleet from his eyes. Through the whiteout, a faint amber glow flickered, far down the bridge where it met the ghostly outline of a roadside diner. The place looked abandoned, a relic from another era with its neon sign half swallowed by snow. But in one of the frosted windows, Logan glimpsed a small shape. A child, barely more than a silhouette, stood on a chair, banging something against the glass. Their hands flashed a shaky rhythm. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Logan's gut twisted. He'd taught that signal to village kids a world away, hoping it'd save them from what he couldn't. Blitz, already moving, yanked hard at his coat. For a heartbeat, Logan just stared, frozen by the bitter irony. He'd come here to disappear, but someone out there was begging to be seen. He swore, forcing his body into motion. The bridge under his boots felt endless. Each step, the wind tried to knock him sideways, ice slicing at his face, his vision stinging. He had to brace one hand on Blitz's broad back just to keep his balance. The dog never wavered, pushing into the gale, eyes locked on the distant flicker of life. Halfway to the diner, a snowplow crawled past, headlights cutting strange shadows over the bridge. Logan waved, but the driver, hunched and white-knuckled, didn't see him, roaring by without slowing. Logan kept moving, the cold bit deeper, exhaustion fighting him with every stride. But Blitz was relentless, shouldering forward until they finally staggered onto the diner's icy parking lot. The place was barely holding together. Snow piled high against the door, rattling windows, neon buzzing in and out. Inside, the lights flickered and died. In the split second of darkness, the child's face, a pale moon pressed against the glass, looked out, wide-eyed and terrified. The next flicker, Logan saw him again. A small boy, 6 or 7, cheeks streaked with tears, tiny hands pounding the SOS. As Logan approached, the boy's eyes went to Blitz, and for the first time, hope cut through the fear. Logan yanked open the heavy glass door, wind slamming it shut behind him. The blast of warmth was almost shocking after the cold, but the diner itself was tense and silent. Inside, old vinyl booths glowed dully in the emergency lights, a flicker of static on the silent TV above the counter. The boy's father sat opposite him, a big man in a battered jacket, face ruddy with anger. He glared at Logan, eyes flicking from the stranger's military-cut hair to the dog's alert stance. The boy tried to shrink into the booth, shoulders hunched, mouth clamped tight as his father barked at him to sit down and be quiet. A coffee mug crashed to the floor, shattering, making the boy flinch. The father slammed the table, sending a fork skittering. Blitz ignored the father, going straight to the child. The dog sat at the boy's feet, tail wagging in a low, slow arc, positioning himself as a living shield. The boy reached out, trembling, and buried his tiny fingers in Blitz's fur. A sudden crack of thunder rattled the windows. The lights flickered again, and then the world went dark. Logan's breath caught as every phone in the diner went dead. No signal, no power, just the storm howling outside, trapping everyone inside. He could smell burnt coffee, old grease, the sharp tang of fear. The father, Cole, cursed loudly, stomping toward the counter. The tension in the room spiked. Even the waitress, who'd tried to intervene, now kept her distance, eyes flicking anxiously from Cole to the child. Logan saw the bruises on the boy's arms, the terror in his eyes, and felt a surge of old, familiar rage, a heat that cut through the cold. He slid into the booth, blocking Cole's way, and gave the boy a reassuring nod. Blitz pressed closer, a silent vow in every line of his body. Not this time. No one was getting hurt if he could help it. Logan's mind raced, searching for a plan. He glanced at the door, at the boarded-up windows, at the battered payphone by the restrooms. Useless now. The world had shrunk to this one fragile, snowbound bubble, and inside, the storm was just getting started. But as he looked into the boy's pleading eyes, Logan knew he had a new mission, one he couldn't walk away from. And as Blitz growled low and protective, the storm outside seemed to pause, waiting to see what would happen next. The moment the lights sputtered and died, a hush fell over the diner, thick as the snow piling outside. Aiden Parker, all 6 years and trembling hands, sat rigid in the cracked red vinyl booth. His father, Cole Madden, hovered above him, a presence like a thundercloud, scowling at the faintest sign of defiance. But Aiden's mind, sharper than anyone knew, clung to the rhythm he'd practiced over and over in kindergarten. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. He didn't dare speak, but the signal pulsed in his veins, a last hope flashing out into the dark. Blitz's weight on his feet was a miracle. The huge German shepherd sat between Aiden and his father, a living wall of fur and muscle. The boy's breath caught as he looked into Blitz's gentle, intelligent eyes. For just a moment, the noise faded. Aiden pressed his trembling fingers deeper into the thick fur, clutching like a lifeline. Cole's anger flared. "Move your mutt! Get him away from my kid!" His voice was a slap against the glass, rattling dishes behind the counter. Logan stood, body calm but coiled. He was no stranger to threats, but the look in Cole's eyes was something raw. Too much whiskey, too many disappointments. The storm was nothing compared to the cold in this man's heart. The waitress, a tired woman named Maggie, tried to play peacemaker. "Let's just all calm down, sir. Your boy's not in any trouble here." But Cole silenced her with a look. No one else dared move. Outside, the blizzard screamed, wind plastering snow against the windows until the world beyond was erased, save for the faint, distant glow of emergency lights on the bridge. Logan's mind shifted into combat mode. Every muscle ready, every sense stretched taut. He took stock. A father coming undone, a frightened child, a dog who wouldn't budge, and himself, the stranger with the scars. He watched Aiden's eyes, wide and glassy, dart between his father's fists and the door. Logan knew the look. He'd seen it on the faces of too many children in places where help never came. Cole slammed the table again. A fork clattered to the floor, making Aiden flinch so hard his juice spilled across the formica. "Look what you did! Useless!" Cole's words cut sharper than the wind outside. He grabbed Aiden's wrist, fingers digging in. The boy squeezed his eyes shut, shoulders curling in. Blitz rumbled a warning growl, low, dangerous, unmistakable, the kind of sound that made men step back, whether in battle or at home. A beat of silence. Cole yanked his hand away, shaking it as if stung. "Control your dog," he barked at Logan. But Blitz didn't move. The dog's loyalty was absolute, his message clear. Aiden's eyes brimmed with tears, but he bit his lip, holding them back. Logan, voice steady, said, "Blitz is just doing his job. He protects people who need it." Cole sneered. "I don't need a lesson from a washed-up vet. You and your mutt can mind your own damn business." He stood up, towering, fists clenched. But Logan met his gaze, unblinking. Years of training, of seeing what men could do at their worst, had burned the fear out of him. Meanwhile, Maggie moved behind the counter, fumbling for the emergency flashlight. Its narrow beam caught dust motes swirling in the cold air. She aimed it at the window, hoping maybe, just maybe, someone out there would see them trapped inside. But the diner was alone, surrounded by white. No cell signal, no working landline, just the silence and the fear. Aiden sat frozen, remembering what his teacher had said. If you can't speak, you can still call for help. He slid his tiny hands under the table, squeezing them into fists, counting out the beats. Blitz nudged him, offering his head for comfort. It was all Aiden could do not to cry. Logan turned his attention to the others in the diner. A trucker slumped at the far end of the counter, pretending to sleep. An elderly couple clutching each other's hands in their booth, eyes darting back and forth. No one wanted to get involved, but everyone could feel the danger, electric in the air. Logan caught Maggie's eye. She gave him a small, desperate shrug. They were on their own. Cole began pacing, his boots thumping on the tile. He muttered under his breath, words too soft to catch, but laced with venom. Every now and then, he shot a glare at Aiden, at Logan, at Blitz. The boy watched his father's shadow, flinching each time Cole drew near. Suddenly, the storm outside let out a monstrous howl, rattling the windows so hard it felt like the whole diner might rip free of its foundations. The elderly woman gasped. Aiden squeezed Blitz even tighter. In that flash of panic, Logan noticed bruises on the boy's wrist, half hidden by his sleeve. Fury burned through him, kept barely in check by the presence of Blitz and the desperate, silent pleas in Aiden's eyes. Another tense minute crawled by. The only sounds the wind and Cole's restless steps. The boy gathered his courage, glancing at Logan, then at Maggie, trying to telegraph his fear without words. Logan saw it. The SOS in every tremble, every sideways glance. The signal wasn't just a pattern. It was a cry from somewhere deep inside. Blitz shifted position, planting himself even more firmly between the child and danger. The dog's tail thumped the seat, deliberate as if to say, "I'm here." Logan sat back down, sliding his battered hand onto the table, palm open. No threats, just quiet support. Aiden, desperate, reached out and let his fingers rest on Logan's. The connection was enough to steady them both. The power flickered again. Cole stopped pacing, pinning everyone with a look. "No one's leaving, not until this storm breaks, and you," he jabbed a finger at Logan, "stay out of my family's business." Logan didn't answer. Instead, he watched the boy, watched Blitz, and made a silent promise. Whatever storm raged outside or in, he wasn't going to let another child be abandoned to the darkness. In that small, snowbound diner, where hope seemed as faint as the flicker of dying neon, an unlikely alliance was forged. A wounded veteran, a loyal dog, and a terrified boy, all bound together by a storm, and by the desperate, silent cry for help that could not be ignored. The storm outside roared on, relentless, turning the windows of the diner into frosted panes of swirling white. Time felt strange, warped and stretched, as if the blizzard had sealed the little building off from the rest of the world. Inside, a thin hush lay over everything, but it was the kind of quiet that buzzed with nerves, as if everyone was waiting for something to snap. Logan Brooks sat at the edge of the booth, shoulders squared, every muscle coiled with the memory of danger. He was used to this feeling, the hush before a firefight, the weight of helplessness, the need to be ready for anything. But this was a different kind of battle, slower and more personal. He watched the boy, Aiden, who clung to Blitz like a shipwreck survivor might cling to a plank. Aiden had barely moved since the chaos at the table. His tiny fingers were buried deep in Blitz's fur, and his eyes, wide and watery, flicked now and then to his father's hunched, brooding shape across the diner. Every time Cole so much as shifted, Aiden's shoulders flinched, the muscles tensing as if bracing for a blow. Blitz was a solid, comforting wall at the boy's side. The old K9's tail occasionally swept over Aiden's feet, and every so often, he would nudge the boy's arm with his wet nose, a silent reassurance that he wasn't alone. Blitz was more than a shield. He was a bridge, anchoring Aiden to safety, refusing to let the cold or fear close in completely. Logan caught himself staring, heart twisting in his chest. In Blitz's devotion, he saw a reflection of his own better days, before everything broke, before the war, before the memories that still sometimes came in the middle of the night, leaving him gasping and tangled in sheets. He watched Aiden and saw a younger version of himself, silent, bracing against anger, hiding bruises in long sleeves and hoping someone, anyone, might notice. The minutes dragged. Maggie, the waitress, shuffled back and forth behind the counter, hands shaking as she poured what was left of the hot coffee into mismatched mugs. She set one in front of Logan, her eyes flicking anxiously between Cole and the rest of the room. "You all right?" she asked quietly. Logan nodded, though he wasn't sure he meant it. "We'll make it through," he said, more for Aiden's benefit than his own. Cole muttered something into his cup, voice low and full of resentment. He glared at Maggie as if daring her to interfere, then slumped back in his seat, arms crossed and jaw tight. The trucker at the counter kept his head down, pretending to study a faded newspaper, but every so often, he shot nervous glances at Cole. Blitz pressed closer to Aiden. The boy, silent and small, reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a battered crayon. Logan watched as Aiden hunched over a napkin, sketching with shaky lines. When he finished, he hesitated, then quietly slid the napkin across the table. Logan picked it up and felt a lump form in his throat. It was a simple drawing, a stick figure boy with a sad face, and next to him, a large dog with a bright yellow badge drawn on its chest. Underneath, in blocky letters, were the words, "Help me." The message was as clear as any radio call. Logan folded the napkin, tucking it carefully into his jacket pocket, and looked at Aiden. The boy met his eyes, just for a moment, and in that glance, Logan felt the weight of all the fear and hope bundled up in that small body. The hours crawled by. The cold crept deeper into the diner as the heat faltered, and everyone wrapped themselves tighter in their coats. Logan's thoughts wandered back to Afghanistan, the sandstorms, the endless waiting, the children who came to the base gates with injuries no child should bear. He remembered the ones he couldn't save. He remembered the promises he made to Blitz, that they'd always protect the innocent, no matter how broken they were inside. Cole's mood grew darker as the cold deepened. He stomped around the diner, grumbling about the damn dog and useless strangers, his anger a living thing that stalked from table to table. Every time he passed Aiden, the boy shrank further into himself, pressing closer to Blitz until his small body was half hidden by the dog. At one point, the wind slammed a loose shutter against the window, making everyone jump. Maggie shrieked, nearly dropping a plate. Logan's hand went automatically to his side, fingers twitching for a weapon that wasn't there. Aiden whimpered, clutching Blitz's fur so tight his knuckles turned white. Blitz didn't flinch. He simply licked Aiden's hand, steady and sure. Later, as the diner fell into a restless, fearful quiet, Logan saw Aiden shiver violently. He slipped off his own heavy coat and draped it around the boy's shoulders. Cole scowled but said nothing, and Blitz gave Logan an approving nudge with his snout. Outside, the storm raged on. The world beyond the glass was gone, replaced by swirling shadows and howling wind. Logan watched the boy draw again, making small, careful lines with the crayon. This time, it was a picture of the diner, with everyone huddled inside, and in one corner, a stick figure with a dog's head pressed protectively against a child's back. Logan leaned closer, voice low. "You did good, kid," he murmured. "We're going to get through this, I promise." Aiden didn't answer, but he slid the new drawing across the table to Logan. It was his way of speaking, of reaching out through the silence, asking for help the only way he knew how. As the cold hours slipped by and pain settled into every corner of the diner, Logan made a decision. No matter what happened, he was going to keep that promise. For Aiden, for himself, for every silent cry for help that had ever gone unanswered. And as Blitz rested his head on the boy's lap, eyes half closed but always alert, Logan knew they were all in this storm together, 3 survivors, huddled against the dark, waiting for the first crack of dawn. As the storm wore on and midnight slipped past with barely a whisper, the air inside the diner thickened with exhaustion and unspoken pain. The heater's final, sputtering groan left the building colder than before. Every breath misted in the blue shadows, Logan Brooks barely noticed the chill on his skin. What bit deepest now was the heaviness in his chest, a pressure that felt like an old wound pressing against a bruise that never healed. Cole Madden's anger had mutated from outbursts to bitter silence. He paced in circles like a caged wolf, boots squeaking on the linoleum, muttering curses about the weather, the power, his luck, and occasionally shooting Logan a look meant to intimidate. But Logan was unmoved. He'd stared down bigger threats than Cole Madden. Armed men on foreign soil, bombs buried in dirt roads, the kind of nightmares that made angry fathers seem small. Still, he understood the type. Logan's own father had carried rage in his bones, simmering just beneath the surface. He recognized the way Cole spoke to Aiden, the clipped phrases, the unpredictable flashes of fury. It was like looking through time, as if he could see his own childhood echoing back at him. There had been days, whole seasons, where the only safe place was the backyard. Lying behind the old shed, with his childhood mutt, Max, curled protectively at his side. Sometimes, love only came on 4 legs. Across the booth, Aiden had stopped drawing. The crayons lay scattered in a loose semicircle around his hand, but he made no move to pick them up. He stared into the distance, blinking slowly, as if trying to disappear inside his own head. The bruises on his wrist, shadows under pale skin, were more visible now, and each time Cole stomped past, the boy's shoulders hunched lower, chin sinking into Logan's oversized coat. Blitz, always the sentinel, refused to budge. He pressed himself so tightly to Aiden's side that the boy was almost hidden from view. The dog's body radiated heat, and his breathing was steady and calm, a living lullaby in the dark. Every few minutes, Aiden would bury his face in Blitz's fur, trembling quietly. No words came. He trusted the dog more than any adult in the room. Cole glared, voice barely above a growl. "Get that damn dog away from my kid." Logan didn't move, didn't blink. He answered, quiet but unyielding. "Blitz isn't leaving. Not tonight." "Maybe you think you're some kind of hero," Cole spat, "but you got no idea what's best for my boy?" He threw a glance at Maggie, the waitress, as if searching for an ally. But she simply busied herself with clearing cups, avoiding his gaze. The tension between the men built in the air, an invisible wire pulled tight. Cole stomped to the window, breath fogging the glass. Logan's mind spun through old lessons: de-escalation, protection, reading the twitch of a man's jaw for the warning signs. He couldn't shake the sense that things were unraveling. Cole's temper was a fuse burning down, and the storm outside only made the fuse shorter. Suddenly, Blitz's ears perked up, body shifting with new alertness. Logan's eyes followed, scanning the outside world through the frosted windows. At first, he saw nothing but black and white, shadows and snow swirling in a constant blur. Then, caught in the harsh beam of a distant headlight, a police cruiser appeared, wheels spinning uselessly, stuck halfway in the snowdrift at the edge of the parking lot. A fragile flicker of hope sparked in Logan's chest. Maybe they'd be rescued soon. Maybe the storm would break, and someone would finally witness what was happening here. He glanced at Aiden, but the boy's attention remained fixed on Blitz, one hand curled deep in the dog's fur. The promise of help meant little when you'd been taught that adults so often failed to keep you safe. Cole, noticing the car, scoffed. "Some help. They can't even get out of their own damn car." He threw up his hands, pacing even faster, words growing more frantic. "We're all just stuck here. No one's coming." His bitterness grew sharper, aimed at the room as if daring anyone to contradict him. In that restless silence, Logan's memories rose up, unbidden and sharp. He saw himself as a boy, flinching at his father's voice, then as a soldier, watching kids cry in ruined houses and wondering how many adults would pass by, too wrapped in their own pain to act. He'd promised himself he'd never be that kind of man. He watched Blitz licking Aiden's cheek, the dog's presence stronger than any spoken word. Sometimes, Logan thought, the only real guardians in this world were the ones who couldn't speak at all. Blitz didn't judge, didn't demand explanations. He simply offered warmth, loyalty, and protection. For a terrified boy in the dead of winter, that was more valuable than anything else. Maggie, seeing Logan's faraway look, quietly pressed a steaming cup of cocoa into his hand. "For the kid," she whispered, nodding at Aiden. Logan thanked her with a soft nod, then passed the cup to Aiden. The boy hesitated, wary of any gesture, but Blitz nudged him encouragingly. After a moment, Aiden took a careful sip, the steam painting his cheeks red. The hours crept by. The police cruiser remained stuck, its blue lights blinking faintly through the white. The tension in the diner simmered, Cole's pacing, Aiden's shivers, Maggie's quiet worry, Logan's silent vigilance, and Blitz's unwavering devotion, all weaving together into a tapestry of fear and hope. For a while, the only sound was the wind howling around the diner, the shudder of old pipes, the soft, exhausted snoring of the trucker at the counter. Logan finally relaxed his shoulders, just a little. Blitz was still watching, always alert, and Aiden was pressed close, half asleep, hand tangled in fur. Logan knew the danger wasn't over, but for tonight, in this battered, snowbound diner, they'd carved out a tiny island of safety, however fragile. And as Logan's eyes drifted again to the stuck police cruiser outside, hope flickered and faded, but it was still there, a small, stubborn flame in the heart of the storm. The storm's rage built to a fever pitch. Snow lashed the diner in wild, furious waves, the windows shuddering as if they might give way at any second. The old neon sign flickered its last before dying out, plunging the parking lot into inky darkness. Inside, only the dim blue pulse from the stranded police cruiser's lights seeped through the snow-streaked glass, eerie and unreal. Logan sat at the edge of the booth, senses razor-sharp, every part of him attuned to the shifting tension in the room. Cole's pacing had become erratic, stomping, muttering, one hand tugging at his hair, the other curled into a fist. Every time he passed near Aiden, the boy shrank further into Blitz, whose silent, watchful presence never wavered. Maggie, clutching her flashlight behind the counter, tried to keep her hands steady as she cleaned up mugs that no one was drinking from. Even the trucker at the counter had abandoned any pretense of sleep, hunched over his coffee, eyes darting between Cole and the others. The diner's generator let out a sickly wheeze and with a sputtering cough, died completely. The room went black. For a moment, everyone froze. In that silence, the storm's howl seemed to fill the world, a primal sound that set Logan's heart pounding with instinctive dread. Cole broke first, his voice, rough and high, sliced through the dark. "That's it! We're not staying in here all night, freezing to death like rats!" The scraping of a chair, the crash of a plate, then the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. Maggie gasped. Logan stood, his body moving before his mind caught up, every sense tuned for violence. A sudden burst of light, Maggie's flashlight, swept across the scene. Cole stood by the counter, his hand wrapped around the broken neck of a bottle, shards glittering at his feet. His eyes were wild, desperate, scanning for an enemy. He pointed the bottle toward Logan, brandishing it like a weapon. "Back off! You stay away from my son!" Aiden whimpered, clutching Blitz so tight the dog whined softly in reassurance. Logan raised both hands, palms open. "Cole, put the bottle down. No one wants trouble." He kept his voice level, all the authority and calm he'd learned in 100 standoffs layered beneath each word. But Cole was beyond hearing. With a curse, Cole lunged forward, grabbing Aiden's arm. The boy let out a cry, small but piercing in the darkness. Blitz reacted instantly, launching himself between Aiden and Cole, barking with a force that echoed off every wall. Cole staggered, almost dropping the bottle, but he yanked Aiden to his side, the boy's feet barely touching the floor as he dragged him toward the door. Logan's training took over. He edged around the tables, keeping himself between Maggie, the trucker, and the chaos unfolding at the entrance. "Let him go, Cole. You don't want to do this." But Cole was frantic, shouting back, "You don't tell me what to do! He's my boy!" He waved the bottle at Logan, keeping everyone at bay, then slammed the flashlight out of Maggie's hand, plunging the room into darkness again. Only Blitz knew the way. The dog stayed on Cole's heels, barking, snapping, positioning himself again and again between Aiden and danger. In the confusion, Aiden's voice rose, barely more than a whisper. "Don't let him take me." The words, small and desperate, cut deeper than any threat. A sudden, shrill sound. Maggie hitting the panic button behind the counter, its alarm lost in the storm but blaring through the silent kitchen. Cole panicked, smashing a window with his elbow. The glass exploded outward, cold air and snow whipping into the diner. "We're leaving!" he shouted, hauling Aiden through the broken window, heedless of the glass tearing his own arm. Blitz bounded after them, ignoring the blood and chaos. Logan was right behind, vaulting the counter and skidding on shattered ice. The trucker shouted something, but Logan barely heard it. His only focus was the small figure in the snow, the terrified child being dragged into the blizzard by a man lost to rage. Outside, the storm was a living thing, roaring, blinding, deadly. Logan's boots slipped on the ice, but he pressed forward, heart thundering. He called to Blitz, who paused, nose low, scanning the wind for Aiden's scent. Logan dropped to one knee, searching for tracks. Snow covered everything instantly, but there, a small, desperate trail of boot prints, a mitten lost in the chaos. He snatched up the mitten and pressed on. Blitz barked, nose to the ground, guiding Logan along the alley behind the diner, the wind trying to strip them of breath and hope. The storm erased all landmarks. The world became a shifting, white labyrinth. Back inside, Maggie scrambled to the window, waving frantically at the police cruiser. The blue and red lights flashed back, but the officers were still stuck, fighting the snowdrifts. She grabbed the radio, praying for a signal. "Help! There's a man! He took the boy! They're out in the blizzard!" Logan plunged forward, every muscle screaming, lungs burning from the cold. But Blitz never faltered, pushing through drifts, barking encouragement, following the faintest whiff of Aiden's fear. Logan's mind raced, memories of rescue missions, of searching for missing soldiers in the blackest nights. He'd promised himself he wouldn't fail again. Somewhere in the swirling snow, Cole's voice rang out, slurred and wild. "Stay back! He's mine! He's all I have left!" The words twisted with pain and fury, but Logan heard only the danger, the threat to a child, and the echo of his own haunted past. He moved faster, driven by more than duty, by the memory of every broken promise, every child he hadn't been able to save. Blitz's barking grew louder, more urgent. Logan followed, heart in his throat, refusing to lose sight of the small, desperate figure in the storm. Tonight, there could be no turning away. Not for Aiden, not for Blitz, not for the boy Logan had once been, left waiting in the cold for someone to answer a silent SOS. And so, into the blizzard, Logan and Blitz ran, toward the unknown, toward the darkness, toward a hope as fragile as the dawn. Outside, the world had vanished, swallowed by the storm. Logan barely felt the bite of the wind anymore. His mind was fixed on one thing only: finding Aiden before Cole's desperation, and the blizzard claimed the boy for good. The snow whipped against his face, needles of ice stinging his cheeks. But he pressed forward, boots crunching over fresh drifts, every muscle burning with adrenaline and dread. Blitz led the way, his instincts sharp as ever, nose skimming low over the disappearing tracks. Aiden's small boot prints wove a fragile path through the parking lot, half buried already. Near the shattered diner window, a mitten lay in the snow, bright blue against the white, dropped in the chaos of Cole's escape. Logan snatched it up, shoving it into his pocket. Something to give Aiden hope, he thought. If, no, when, they found him. Blitz paused at the edge of the lot, nose working furiously, then barked twice, deep and urgent. Logan crouched low, peering through the swirling white. He could just make out two shapes stumbling away. Cole, his form broad and staggering, and Aiden, tiny and hunched, coat flapping as he was half dragged, half carried through the storm. Logan's heart pounded. He'd been here before. Different country, different stakes, but the same raw terror, the same determination. He moved, keeping low, using the snowbanks for cover, Blitz always a few paces ahead, muscles bunching and releasing as he tracked the trail. The storm pressed in, a smothering weight, but Logan's world narrowed to the boy and the dog and the mission. The town around them was lost to the storm. Streetlights flickered behind curtains of snow, cars abandoned in the middle of the street, nothing but the howl of wind and the distant, futile flash of police lights trapped at the edge of the diner's lot. Logan's breath came in ragged bursts. He could taste fear and old memories on his tongue. Ahead, Cole stumbled, nearly losing his grip on Aiden. The boy twisted, trying to pull away, but Cole yanked him closer, voice slurred with panic and cold. "Don't you run, you hear me? You're not leaving me too." His voice was barely more than a ragged whisper, stolen by the wind. Logan caught a glimpse of Aiden's face, tear-streaked, flushed with cold and fear, but alive, eyes darting wildly in search of help. Blitz barked again, louder, and Aiden turned. Their eyes met across the white chaos, and for a heartbeat, Logan saw something fierce, a glimmer of hope, a plea for rescue. Logan pushed harder, boots slipping as he rounded the corner of a darkened alley. Blitz took off at a sprint, paws barely leaving tracks as the snow tried to swallow them all. They passed a dark storefront, windows boarded against the storm. The sign above, Jack's Auto Gas, was half buried, but Logan recognized it from when he'd driven through this town weeks ago. The memory struck him. There was a covered awning out back, and a set of storage sheds. Good for shelter, but easy for a desperate man to barricade himself inside. Logan's mind flashed through possibilities. Cole would know the cops were close. He'd want somewhere to hide, somewhere to hole up until morning. He might be armed, cornered, dangerous as a wounded animal. Aiden's tracks, growing erratic, veered toward the alley. Logan knelt, brushing aside snow, searching for fresh clues. Blitz paused, head cocked, and then nosed at a pile of snow. Underneath, Logan found the second mitten, half frozen but unmistakable. He gripped it tight, feeling a surge of desperate hope. "You're doing good, Blitz," he whispered. The dog wagged his tail, anxious but focused, eyes shining in the darkness. They moved down the alley, senses tuned to every sound. The wind rattled a metal sign overhead, making Logan flinch, memories of war zones clawing at the edges of his mind. But he pushed them away. There was no time for ghosts now, only the present. Only Aiden. Suddenly, Blitz froze, hackles raised. Ahead, Logan heard shouting, Cole, his voice breaking with rage and exhaustion. "You stay there! Don't you move!" Logan crept forward, pressing his back to the brick wall, peeking around the edge. There, under the flickering yellow bulb above the gas station's service door, Cole had barricaded himself and Aiden in the doorway, arms wrapped tight around the boy, the broken bottle still glinting in his fist. Aiden was sobbing now, silent and desperate, struggling against his father's grip. Blitz growled low, crouched and ready. Logan took a slow breath, steadying his nerves. He had to end this without anyone getting hurt. "Cole!" Logan called, loud enough to cut through the storm but calm, commanding, "Let him go. This isn't the way." Cole whirled, eyes wild. "Stay back. I mean it." The bottle flashed, and Logan saw blood streaking Cole's arm, cuts from the glass, maybe frostbite already setting in. Cole looked half-crazed, shivering so hard his words shook. "He's all I got left. You think you know me, but you don't." Logan inched closer, hands open, never breaking eye contact. Blitz moved with him, every step calculated, body a wall between Cole and Aiden. "You're scared," Logan said, voice steady. "I get it. But this isn't the answer. He's a kid, Cole. He needs help. We all do sometimes." For a second, Cole wavered, eyes darting from Logan to Blitz to the empty street. Then the police cruiser's lights appeared at the alley's mouth, officers finally breaking free from the drifts, shouting through their radios, blue and red strobing across the snow. Cole's grip tightened. "You stay away. I'll do it, I swear." The threat hung in the freezing air. Logan felt Blitz tense, muscles coiled for action. And then, Aiden broke free for a split second, wrenching his hand from Cole's grasp, diving toward Blitz with a choked sob. Blitz leaped forward, placing his body between father and son, baring his teeth, growling a warning that left no room for doubt. Cole staggered back, shocked, the bottle dropping from numb fingers. He crumpled against the brick, snow swirling around him. The police raced up, voices shouting commands, weapons drawn, but Logan waved them off, hands up. "He's done," he called. "It's over." Aiden threw himself into Blitz's fur, sobbing, the dog licking his face with frantic devotion. Logan knelt beside them, pulling both into a protective embrace as the storm raged and the sirens finally echoed in the night. For the first time, Aiden let himself believe. Maybe, just maybe, the storm was almost over. The storm outside raged with a final furious crescendo, but inside the alley behind Jack's auto gas, everything slowed to a tense, fragile stillness. Logan, knees in the snow, arms around Aiden and Blitz, felt the world narrow to just this. The boy's shuddering breath, the hot press of Blitz's fur, the crash of boots and shouts of police drawing closer. Cole Madden sagged against the brick wall, shoulders slumped, the broken bottle forgotten and his breath fogging in the freezing air. Police officers burst into the alley, weapons drawn, their voices urgent. "Step away from the child! Get your hands in the air!" The blue and red lights flashed, strobing across the snow, making the moment surreal, a nightmare melting into harsh, fluorescent reality. Cole blinked, dazed, as if just waking from a dream. His hands rose slowly, trembling. The rage and bravado had drained from his face, leaving a hollow, desperate man who looked smaller than before. Aiden clung to Blitz as if the dog were the last safe thing in the world, pressing his tear-streaked cheek into Blitz's neck. Blitz didn't move, except to keep himself wedged firmly between Aiden and Cole, his body rigid, hackles raised, teeth bared in a silent snarl that warned every adult in the alley. You come for him, you come through me. Logan kept his own movements slow, deliberate, showing the officers his empty hands. It's okay, he called, voice low and steady. The boy's safe. The dog's mine. He's a retired K9. Just give us a second. One of the officers, a tall woman with a weathered face and steady hands, recognized Logan from the local VA and nodded. Brooks, that you? Her voice carried a mix of shock and relief. Yeah, just let me get him out of here. Logan stood, keeping his body between Aiden and Cole. The officer stepped forward, holstering her weapon, and reached for the boy, but Aiden shrank away, squeezing Blitz even tighter. Hey, buddy, Logan said, crouching down so he was eye level with Aiden, the snow swirling around them. It's over now, okay? You're safe. Blitz and we're right here. Nobody's going to hurt you. Aiden's eyes were huge, wild, but as Logan spoke, something shifted. The boy loosened his grip just a little, his breathing slowing, his body uncoiling from the knot of terror. Blitz gave a reassuring whine and nudged the boy's chin, as if to say, "Trust him. He's with us." Cole, meanwhile, was on his knees, hands on his head, officers cuffing him with brisk, practiced motions. He muttered curses, then fell silent, the fight draining out of him as quickly as the heat from his body. One officer checked the gash on his arm, shallow, bloody but not life-threatening, then led him toward the waiting cruiser, his boots dragging through the snow. Logan kept his focus on Aiden, never rushing, never forcing. He pulled the blue mitten from his pocket and held it out. You dropped this, he said softly. Aiden stared at it, then at Logan, as if unsure whether the world had really changed or if he was just dreaming. With a shaky hand, Aiden took the mitten and slipped it on. It was too wet, too cold, but it was his. It was something he'd lost and now had back. Maggie, the waitress, appeared at the edge of the alley, coat flapping in the wind, tears streaming down her face as she watched the officers load Cole into the back of the cruiser. She caught Logan's eye and mouthed, "Thank you." The trucker, too, hovered in the distance, arms wrapped around himself, face pale and stunned. The officers began asking questions. Who, what, why, how long? But Logan answered as simply as he could. The boy was in danger. The father. He lost control. The storm trapped us. The dog protected him. That's all you need to know right now. Blitz sat at Aiden's feet, every inch the hero, his eyes never leaving the boy. One of the officers went inside the diner to check the security camera, while another took statements from Maggie and the trucker. The woman officer, still keeping a careful distance, squatted beside Logan and Aiden. You want to come sit in the car, get warm? She asked gently. We'll get you both checked out. Make sure you're okay. Aiden hesitated, looking up at Logan, then at Blitz. Logan nodded. It's all right. I'll be right there with you. Blitz too, if that's okay. The officer smiled, understanding, and led the trio toward the warmth and flashing lights of the squad car. Inside the car, the world felt quieter, sealed off from the storm and the shouting and the long, hard night. Aiden curled into the seat, Blitz squeezing in beside him, huge head on the boy's lap. Logan sat up front, but kept turning to check on them, He watched as Aiden, exhausted, finally relaxed enough to close his eyes. For the first time, his hand rested on Blitz's head, not in desperation, but in trust. A paramedic checked them over, cleaning up cuts and scrapes, murmuring soft reassurances. "You did real good, kid," she said, giving Aiden a gentle smile. The boy didn't answer, but the look in his eyes spoke volumes. Outside, the storm began to die down, the worst of it passing. The police finished gathering statements. The security footage, paired with Aiden's crayon drawings and Logan's testimony, painted a clear picture. Cole had terrorized his son, lost control, and nearly caused tragedy. But thanks to a retired soldier and his loyal dog, the cycle was broken. There would be no question in court. Justice, at last, was coming. As the first weak gray of dawn crept into the sky, the squad car's heater humming, Aiden whispered, "Don't let him take me." Logan turned in his seat, meeting the boy's eyes. "He won't," Logan said, voice firm. "Not ever again. I promise." Aiden nodded, trusting the promise, and pressed his face into Blitz's neck. Outside, the police led Cole away, the snow falling softer now, as if the world itself was exhaling. Logan leaned back, a strange, weary peace settling in. He'd kept his promise, not just to Aiden, but to every memory, every child he'd never been able to save before. And as the sky brightened, the storm breaking at last, he knew. Tonight, Blitz had been a shield. Aiden had found his courage, and somewhere deep inside, Logan had found his own reason to hope again. The worst of the blizzard passed with the dawn, leaving behind a battered but quieter town, blanketed in a hush of fresh, unspoiled snow. For Logan, the rescue had ended not with applause or cheers, but with the soft exhaustion that came after surviving something bigger than any one person could bear alone. At the Red Flame Children's Center, a squat brick building on the edge of town, warmth beckoned behind tall windows, glowing gold in the pale morning light. Inside, the staff moved quietly, as if mindful not to shatter the fragile peace. Aiden, still clutching Blitz's leash, walked in beside Logan, shoulders hunched, eyes darting warily at every new face. The air smelled of cinnamon oatmeal, fresh coffee, and something softer, maybe hope. There was laughter in the background, distant and cautious, as if the other children sensed a storm had just passed, but weren't quite sure it was safe to come out yet. Logan knelt at the entrance, tugging gently on Blitz's collar. "You ready, buddy?" he whispered to Aiden, who only nodded, one hand twisted in the old dog's fur. Blitz wagged his tail and nudged the boy forward. Staff members, a patient nurse named Carla, a sturdy counselor named Rick, came forward, offering warm, practiced smiles. "We're glad you're here, Aiden," Carla said softly, kneeling to his level. "You can rest now. You're safe." Aiden didn't answer. His eyes were red-rimmed from sleeplessness, voice buried somewhere deep. Instead, he crouched on the floor beside Blitz, arms wrapped around the dog's neck, face pressed into his fur. Rick offered Logan a clipboard of forms, but Logan barely looked at them. His focus was on Aiden, making sure the boy knew with every gesture that he wasn't being abandoned again. As the day unfolded, routines at Red Flame slowly absorbed Aiden into their rhythm. Breakfast in the bright dining hall, new pajamas, a cot in a room decorated with cheerful murals of forests and rivers. Blitz stayed by his side, tail thumping, a living anchor in an uncertain world. The staff watched in quiet amazement as Aiden, though silent, seemed to draw strength from the dog. Blitz let Aiden bury his face in his coat, climb into his lap, even tug on his ears, never moving away, always patient. Rick explained gently to Logan that Aiden would stay until a foster placement could be found, and that trauma like his took time to heal. He's got a long road ahead, but you and that dog gave him a real chance. Logan nodded, feeling the old ache in his chest, but also a small, growing relief. Blitz, with his calm devotion, quickly became a local legend. After a quick assessment and some paperwork, he was certified as a therapy dog for the Children's Center. Staff and kids alike were drawn to him, but it was Aiden who claimed his heart. When Aiden didn't want to join in group play or was too afraid to eat, Blitz would nudge him, herd him gently toward the others, or simply sit close by so Aiden never felt alone. Slowly, the other children approached too, drawn first by the dog, then by the quiet boy who sat beside him. At first, Aiden barely spoke. His voice, when it came at all, was a whisper meant only for Blitz. Private conversations in the language of trust. Logan visited every day, spending hours in the playroom, tossing a ball for Blitz while Aiden sat nearby, sometimes drawing, sometimes just watching, always quietly present. Maggie, the diner waitress, stopped by with cookies and a knitted scarf, her own eyes misty as she watched the way Aiden lit up whenever Blitz appeared. It was a Wednesday afternoon, nearly a week after the rescue, when Aiden spoke his first words at the center. He was sitting cross-legged in a patch of sunlight. Blitz sprawled out beside him. Carla sat nearby, offering gentle encouragement. "If you want to tell us how you feel, you can. Or maybe you can show us with a drawing?" Aiden hesitated, eyes flicking to Logan in the corner, then to Blitz, who was pawing gently at his hand. Very softly, Aiden whispered, "He saved me." Carla smiled, nodding. "Yes, he did. Blitz is a hero, isn't he?" Aiden nodded, hugging Blitz tighter, and a few moments later he added, "Thank you." The words were small, barely audible, but they were a beginning. Logan felt a rush of emotion, pride, relief, and a fierce protectiveness he hadn't known he was still capable of. He reached out, squeezing Aiden's shoulder, then leaned down to let Blitz lick his face in solidarity. "You did the hard part, kid," Logan said. "You asked for help. You were brave." Days became weeks. Aiden spoke more often, sometimes to Blitz, sometimes to Logan, and slowly to the staff and other kids. He began to laugh, shy at first, then with a spark of real joy, especially when Blitz would do his silly tricks, rolling over, playing dead, or reading storybooks with a paw on the pages. The other children joined in, and soon Aiden was surrounded by a circle of friends, all drawn together by the dog who'd refused to let go. Logan found himself at the center more and more, volunteering to help with art classes, dog walks, and therapy sessions. He realized slowly that being needed again, by Aiden, by Blitz, even by the other kids, was healing something in himself, too. The guilt and anger that had followed him since the war began to lift, replaced by a new sense of purpose. One evening, as the sun set in golden bars across the playroom floor, Aiden handed Logan a drawing. 3 stick figures, one tall, one small, one with 4 legs and a wagging tail. Above them, in a shaky but determined hand, he'd written, "Family." For the first time in a long while, Logan felt hope, not just for Aiden, but for himself. The storm had passed, but its lessons lingered. That healing comes in small, steady steps. That trust is built, not given. And that sometimes, saving someone else is the only way to save yourself. Winter held its grip on the little Minnesota town, but the storms now belonged to memory. At Red Flame Children's Center, sunlight spilled through frosty windows, warming painted walls and filling the halls with a gentle glow. The scent of pancakes drifted from the kitchen every morning, and the playroom buzzed with laughter, shouts, and the thump of running feet. Aiden, once a silent shadow clinging to Blitz, was learning what it meant to be a child again. Each day brought small victories, sometimes so subtle only those who'd known real darkness could recognize them. Logan came early and stayed late, settling into a rhythm that gave his restless spirit purpose. He watched as Aiden's world expanded, one gentle step at a time. Blitz was never far from the boy's side. Their bond had become legend in the center. Aiden could be found napping curled against the big shepherd, or wandering the playground with Blitz walking slow and steady at his hip. Sometimes, Aiden would bury his face in Blitz's neck and whisper things only the dog could hear. Blitz would thump his tail and lick away the leftover traces of old nightmares. The other children trusted Blitz first, but in time, they trusted Aiden too. He taught them how to scratch behind Blitz's ears just right, how to hold out a treat with an open palm, how to read the subtle signals that said when Blitz was ready to play, or when he simply wanted to sit quietly and be. For Logan, those scenes were reminders of a lesson he'd forgotten somewhere along the way. True guardianship wasn't about speeches or grand gestures, but about presence. Blitz's loyalty was unwavering. He guarded without demand, listened without judgment, gave love without conditions. For a child learning to trust again, sometimes a dog was the only place to begin. It was in the quiet moments, after the noise and chaos of playtime faded, that the real healing began. Logan watched Aiden draw at the low table in the art room, tongue poked between his lips in concentration. Blitz sprawled beside him. Rick, the counselor, noticed too. "He's coming along, isn't he?" Rick said one afternoon, pulling up a chair beside Logan. Logan nodded. "He's brave," he said simply. "Braver than most adults I know." He meant it. He'd seen men freeze in the face of horror, but Aiden, tiny, battered, frightened, had found a way to signal for help. That kind of courage, Logan realized, was a quiet force, but more powerful than any weapon. Rick sipped his coffee. Most people think courage is about fighting back, but sometimes it's just refusing to give up, even when you're scared. He glanced at Blitz, who was now nudging Aiden's elbow for a turn with the crayon. And sometimes, courage is knowing who to trust. The days grew longer. Aiden's voice grew stronger. He started to laugh at the breakfast table, raise his hand in class, even ask to help with chores. The nightmares came less often. When they did, Blitz was there, and more, so was Logan. One chilly Saturday, the center held a Family and Friends Day. Parents, guardians, and volunteers mingled over hot cocoa and crafts. Logan stood by the window, unsure where he fit into this new world. He'd spent so long drifting, between duty and regret, between isolation and longing for connection. He watched as Aiden introduced Blitz to everyone, pride shining in his face. Aiden tugged Logan's hand, pulling him into the circle of children building a cardboard fort. "Logan, help! Blitz needs a secret entrance." And so Logan found himself on his knees, taping flaps of cardboard, laughing for the first time in months. That day, Aiden presented Blitz with a hand-drawn medal, a circle cut from gold paper, a string to hang around his neck. On it, in big, careful letters, was written, "Best Friend." He placed it on Blitz's collar, then pressed his face into the shepherd's side and whispered, "You saved me." Logan watched, heart swelling. It wasn't just the dog who'd saved Aiden. It was Aiden's own courage, his quiet SOS, and his stubborn hope. It was the staff at Red Flame, and the circle of children who welcomed a frightened newcomer as their own. Healing, Logan realized, wasn't just a matter of time or therapy or even love. It was a tapestry, woven from hundreds of small acts. A crayon drawing slipped into a pocket, a seat at the breakfast table, a gentle nudge from a dog's nose. Logan's own healing came in these quiet ways, too. The guilt and grief that had haunted him for so long began to loosen their hold. He found himself smiling more, sleeping better, seeing possibilities where before he'd only seen regret. He started leading group walks for the children and veterans who visited the center, sometimes sharing stories, more often just listening. He realized that the act of showing up consistently, quietly, without expectation of reward, was its own kind of bravery. There were setbacks. Some nights, Aiden still woke crying, reaching for Blitz. Some mornings, Logan's old scars ached, reminders of battles lost and friends gone. But each time, they weathered it together. Over time, the shelter became not just a safe place, but a home. As the seasons began to turn and the last of winter's snow melted into spring, Red Flame grew busier. The halls filled with new faces, some anxious, some hopeful. Aiden became a guide for newcomers, showing them where to find the best crayons, the softest pillows, the friendliest dog. He taught them the SOS, 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, not just as a signal of distress, but as a promise. If you call for help, someone will answer. On a quiet afternoon, as Logan watched Aiden and Blitz playing tag in the fresh grass, Rick joined him, hands in his pockets. "Funny how it works, isn't it?" Rick said. "You came here to help a child, but maybe you needed the shelter too." Logan smiled, understanding. "Maybe we all do sometimes." Blitz trotted over, metal still hanging from his collar, and nuzzled Logan's hand. In that moment, Logan felt something settle inside, a sense of belonging, of purpose, of peace. The storm had not been in vain. In helping Aiden find his voice, Logan had found his own. And as the sun set over the Red Flame Children's Center, painting the world in gold and orange, Logan understood at last. Loyalty, courage, healing, and community weren't just words. They were lifelines, woven through a dog's devotion, a boy's bravery, and the willingness of broken people to answer each other's calls. 1 year passed, and with it, the harshest winter anyone in the little Minnesota town could remember, faded into gentle springs and green, forgiving summers. The storms were no longer just memories of fear and pain, but stories told in the warm kitchen at the Red Flame Children's Center. Stories that ended with laughter, not tears. The center, once a place of hushed voices and tentative hope, thrived with a steady, welcoming rhythm. New faces appeared almost every month, children who carried their own invisible storms, veterans searching for meaning after the battles ended, volunteers drawn to the promise of second chances. The halls echoed with the patter of running feet, the slap of wet boots kicked off at the door, the bark of Blitz as he announced arrivals with dignified excitement. Aiden, no longer the pale, silent boy from that blizzard night, had grown taller and stronger. He'd become a bright spark in the daily life of Red Flame, his smile lighting up the playroom as he greeted each newcomer with a confidence that had once seemed impossible. He remembered every child's name, saved his best jokes for those who needed a laugh, and always introduced the new arrivals to Blitz, still the unofficial guardian and hero of the center. If a child flinched at loud noises or shrank away from hugs, Aiden would kneel quietly beside them, offering Blitz's fur to stroke, showing them the gentle language of trust. Blitz, his muzzle grayer but his heart unbowed, seemed to understand the importance of every introduction. He nuzzled shy hands, leaned into trembling shoulders, and led the way on playground adventures. He never let Aiden out of his sight, but he made room for other children too, letting them share the comfort he'd once reserved for just one frightened boy. Logan, once a drifter haunted by war and regret, had found his purpose within these walls. He led group sessions for the children and for fellow veterans, sometimes just listening, sometimes sharing stories about bravery, about fear, about the long road back from brokenness. He became the center's go-to for fixing leaky faucets, organizing soccer games, and stepping in when a strong, calm presence was needed. With each passing day, the sharp edges of his own grief softened. In the laughter of children, in the steady presence of Blitz, in Aiden's trust, Logan rediscovered the simple, stubborn truth that everyone needs a reason to stay, a place to belong. The seasons cycled, summer picnics beneath wide, blue skies, autumn bonfires where everyone roasted marshmallows and told ghost stories, winter nights spent bundled together, watching the snow swirl but never fearing it as they once had. The world outside still brought trouble, but Red Flame became a sanctuary, a place where storms were faced together and no one's pain was carried alone. One crisp morning, as golden light crept over the grass, Logan stood on the back porch, sipping coffee and watching the sun rise. He heard laughter and turned to see Aiden leading a group of younger children out onto the lawn, Blitz trotting at their heels. They were playing a game of tag. Aiden was it, and Blitz, as always, was both referee and participant, barking in mock outrage whenever anyone tried to run too fast. Logan watched as Aiden paused, calling out encouragement to a shy new girl who hesitated at the edge of the game. Gently, Aiden offered his hand, and she took it, stepping into the sunlight with uncertain hope. Blitz approached her too, offering his head for a careful pet. In that moment, Logan saw a reflection of that stormy night. Fear met with patience, loneliness answered by connection, and one small act of kindness rippling outward to change a life. As the game wound down, the children flopped into the grass, breathless and giggling. Aiden rolled onto his back, staring up at the clouds. Blitz curled beside him. Logan walked over, settling onto the soft earth, feeling the warmth of the sun and the solid comfort of belonging. For a long moment, he let the peace wash over him. Aiden propped himself on one elbow, looking at Logan. "Hey, will you tell the story again? The one about the night Blitz saved me?" The other children perked up, eager for another telling. Logan smiled. "You all know it by heart," he teased. But they begged, so he began. It was the coldest night of the year, and the world was white with snow. As he spoke, he watched the children's faces, some wide-eyed, some smiling, all safe. He finished the story the same way he always did, with the words he'd come to believe. In every storm, loyalty, courage, and care can light the way home. The children clapped, and Aiden grinned, turning to Blitz. "You're the best hero, you know that?" Blitz wagged his tail, thumping the earth in agreement. Afterward, Aiden gave Blitz another hand-drawn medal, a new one, since the old paper had worn thin with pride and use. This one was crafted from cardboard, painted gold, strung with yarn. It read, in bold letters, "Best friend forever." He hung it around Blitz's neck, and the dog wore it like a crown. Later, as the day faded to soft evening and the children drifted inside for dinner, Logan lingered outside, watching Aiden and Blitz play. The sun slipped behind the trees, painting the yard in shades of rose and gold. In that golden hush, Logan felt the truth settle deep inside. Rescue is always mutual. Saving Aiden and Blitz had saved him too, giving shape and meaning to his life in a way he'd once thought lost forever. He thought of all the silent pleas for help that go unnoticed, the small acts of courage that change the course of a life. He thought of the chain of kindness that had led him here, a dog's devotion, a boy's quiet SOS, a moment of decision on a frozen bridge. Inside, the laughter and light beckoned. Logan followed, pausing on the threshold as Aiden turned and called, "Come on, your family now." And so, with a grateful heart and a new sense of belonging, Logan stepped inside, Blitz close at his heels, ready for whatever storms might come next. And in that place, warm, bright, and full of hope, the deepest lesson of all rang true. If you see a silent plea for help, answer it, no matter how small. The life you save may bring you home too. In every storm, loyalty, courage, and care can light the way.